The story begins with our protagonist, Kuro. Everything was peaceful until, suddenly, a girl named Iwanaga Kotoko appeared, claiming to have saved his life. Kuro didn't remember her, but Iwanaga reminded him that 2 years ago, some kids made him trip and she prevented him from falling. Just for that, she asked him to remember her for life, to which he agreed. She was fascinated by him and compared him to a goat for his carefree attitude, great vitality, and agility. She even considered him almost like a demon because of his horns. With that logic, she fell in love with him. At that moment, a girl named Saki arrived to apologize to Kuro. Iwanaga thought she was his sister, until she saw them holding hands, and all her hopes of conquering Kuro vanished. She asked the nurses and found out that Kuro and Saki would go to the same university and, after graduating, they would get married. So she still had hopes with him. Until one day she saw Kuro alone and discovered that he had broken up with Saki. Kuro remembered her and was surprised by the amount of gossip in the hospital. Putting that aside, Iwanaga, bluntly, told him that now that he was single, he could consider dating her and then getting married. Kuro doubted it because she was not his type, and he also didn't want to end up in jail. She got angry because she was 17 years old and only had 1 year left to be of legal age and attend university. But Kuro found it amusing because someone confessing their feelings to him made him feel like he wasn't a lost cause in love. Iwanaga was curious and asked him why Saki had left him. So, he told her that one night, when they were walking by a river, a kappa appeared, which scared Saki too much, but he, out of fear, ran away without looking back at her, and she ended up disappointed in Kuro. Before moving for her new job, Saki took the opportunity to break up with him. Kuro didn't blame her and didn't care if Iwanaga believed her story or not. That's why he considered he wasn't a good match for her. But as he was leaving, Iwanaga stopped him and contradicted his story because she knew it wasn't Kuro who escaped, but the kappa, who got scared and ran away from Kuro. Saki, upon seeing the kappa escape from Kuro, got scared of him. Kuro ended up telling her that the story was a lie and wouldn't tell her about their breakup. Iwanaga ended up telling her that she knew very little about kappa, but knew about other similar creatures, like yokai, specters, and demons, which are harmless and observe in silence. That didn't explain why Saki wanted them to find the body. Throughout the story, Iwanaga drew several conclusions, like the fact that the guy also wanted to apologize to Saki's ex's brother. He contacted her because it sounded suspicious, and when he confessed everything to them, he ended up killing the guy. Since he had a promising future, Saki decided to take the blame and did everything so that nothing would happen to her ex-brother-in-law. The snake was more or less convinced. Then Kuro appeared, who even scared the snake. Furthermore, Iwanaga introduced him as her boyfriend, which obviously was a lie. Putting that aside, Iwanaga, to fully convince the snake, said that Saki had been pregnant, but when she found out what her boyfriend did, she aborted her baby and threw it into the swamp. After learning the truth, she tried to retrieve her baby's body, but couldn't. That's why she confessed what she did and threw the knife she used to kill the guy into the swamp so that the police would search for it and find her baby to give it a proper burial. In the end, the snake was convinced by the story and the boys left. Although Iwanaga confessed to Kuro that, thanks to a ghost she sent with Saki, she discovered that Saki simply thought the snake would eat the corpse and had told the snake a bunch of lies to keep it calm. 2 years later, in another city, there were several accidents caused by a Busta-ghost, known as the Steel Lady Nannies. Kuro's ex, Saki, had become a police officer and was investigating the case with Detective Terada. Although the detective did not believe in ghosts, Saki did, because she had the feeling that the ghost was real. By the way, the detective had feelings for Saki, but she always rejected his invitations to eat because she couldn't eat meat due to certain things that happened when she was with Kuro. Late at night, when Saki was going home, out of nowhere, Iwanaga ended up falling on her. Saki thought she was a very cute but also very strange girl. When she got serious, Iwanaga told Saki to leave. Then the Steel Lady appeared. Saki was fed up with her, so she attacked her, but being a ghost, she couldn't even touch her. The Steel Lady could touch Saki, and when she was about to kill her, Iwanaga threw herself and she could touch her. They ended up facing each other, although Iwanaga's leg flew off. Still, she gave the ghost a tremendous kick, but it wasn't enough. But the Steel Lady ended up leaving when things calmed down. Iguanaga had to forget what she saw and that she had come from her city to take care of the Steel Lady, but Saki wouldn't let her go because it was her duty as a police officer to investigate what was happening. But Iguanaga barely saw her identification and realized she was Kuro's ex and didn't recognize her because she had cut her hair and lost weight. If she had known it was her, she wouldn't have helped her. Although she wouldn't have let her die either. Saki did not recognize Iguanaga, so she told her that they had seen each other before and that now she was Kuro's girlfriend, to which Saki hit her for lying. Saki ended up taking Iguanaga to her house and she still doubted that she was Kuro's girlfriend because she was not Kuro's type of girl, and since Saki did not believe her, Iguanaga showed her photos where they were happy together, leaving that aside. Iguanaga told Saki that she was like a goddess of wisdom and had come to the city because several ghosts from the city asked her for help. The girls were worried about the Steel Lady because if she continued like this, she could kill someone. Saki found it strange that Kuro had not accompanied her because it was dangerous, but she said she did not tell her anything because Kuro was sick and that she would finish the case quickly, which was a total lie since Kuro was not at home, did not answer her calls, and only sent her a message not to look for him. So Saki threw in her face that she did answer her messages and was always there to support her. When Iguanaga left in a giant skeleton to look for the Steel Lady, Saki started investigating, and it turns out that the Steel Lady was this girl named Nanasi, who due to her great attributes was hired as an idol and over time became very famous because she was very talented. But fame also brought her misfortunes, as she was also hated and her father had died. People began to say that she was the one who killed her father because they did not have a good relationship, and they found a book where the father wrote that he felt someone wanted to kill him. So Nanasi's company would make her rest because of what happened, but she did not plan to take a break and would continue working. The more she investigated, she realized that on a page that only talked about the Steel Lady, the information she had described perfection Nanase appeared as a ghost. And Saki also discovered that Nanase had died in an accident where several steel beams fell on her, leaving her unrecognizable. But with the identification she was carrying and comparing the marks on her body with the marks she had left in her apartment, the detectives confirmed that it was indeed her and the cause of her death had been an accident. Nanase also had a younger sister, and there were rumors that she was the one who killed Nanase. While Iguanaga was thinking about these things, some spirits arrived at her house with orders to gather in a dining room. While Iguanaga waited for her in the dining room, a ghost informed her that the Steel Lady had reappeared. So she immediately went to look for her, but when she arrived, Juro was already facing her. Saki also ended up arriving and scolded Iguanaga for leaving her waiting, but they both started watching the fight, where Kuro was more on the receiving end of blows rather than fighting back. But since he was immortal, there were no problems. In addition, not only was he immortal, but he could also predict the Steel Lady's attacks and counter them. So, Iguanaga told Saki why Kuro was immortal. It was because 10 generations ago in Kuro's family, people used to eat creatures like yokais to obtain their abilities. Then, Kuro's ancestor became obsessed with a special creature, the Kyuden, a yokai that had the ability to see the future. Then he made his relatives eat Kyuden meat to obtain that power, but when they did, people died because the Kyuden had a curse and it was that to predict the future. Then the creature ended up dying. The old man became frustrated with that, but he found a solution, which was to eat mermaid flesh in order to become immortal and not die after seeing the future. But when he tried again with relatives, they would die shortly after consuming both meats. So, the experiment was abandoned, but Kuro's grandmother resumed the experiment and made all the children eat those 2 types of meat without them knowing. But then everyone started to die and Kuro was the only survivor. To verify that Kuro was immortal and could predict the future, he stabbed and killed him several times, so many that over time he had stopped feeling pain. And after all the children had died, Kuro's only company was his cousin, whom, by the way, he was going to visit in the hospital on his way back with the kids. The Steel Lady was hurting Kuro, so Iguanaga immobilized her and ended up breaking her neck, but as she was a ghost, he couldn't kill her. In the end, after seeing the girls, the Steel Lady left when things calmed down. Iguanaga was mad at Kuro for not answering his calls, and from what they both said, Saki realized they were actually dating, although Kuro said it with disappointment. Juro apologized to Iguanaga for the trouble he had caused, so everything was fine between them. Although that wasn't good for Iguanaga because they were exes. After that, the kids went to Saki's house and noticed that Saki had lost a lot of weight and was almost skeletal because she had been traumatized since she saw Kuro heal his wound super quickly. Since then, she had stopped eating meat, although she still had hips, which she would normally deny, but Kuro didn't and said she was beautiful. Kuro had arrived in the city after receiving a call from Iguanaga, but he ended up meeting the Steel Lady first. Also, the yokais were already talking to him because he was with Iguanaga, although he still found it terrifying because they more or less saw him that way. After discussing that, Iguanaga told the kids that the Steel Lady was not like yokais or ghosts, as she was created based on people's rumors, because if many people started to believe in some creature and imagined what it was like, that creature ended up being true. So, the Steel Lady was basically an artificially created monster, and the more people believed in her existence, the stronger she became. Moreover, the ghost was very powerful, and within less than a year since Nane's death, the story of the Steel Lady spread very quickly. Additionally, Iguanaga discovered that the Wikipedia entry for the Steel Lady didn't have the exact description of the ghost by chance. Rather, the Steel Lady was created through that Wikipedia entry. People, having the reference image, believed in that figure, and that's how the Steel Lady took shape. Since the kids couldn't get rid of the Steel Lady by killing her, as she would return shortly after, Iguanaga planned to make people stop believing in her. To do this, he needed real information about Nane's accident. Reluctantly, he started contributing information from the police reports. They also visited the accident site, luckily encountering a ghost there. He knew no one else had been there and began smoking. Additionally, Nane's was deeply affected by the rumors about her. When steel beams fell on her, she made no attempt to dodge them because she no longer wanted to live. So, the matter of her death was resolved. However, this wouldn't solve the current problem, but it would be easier to resolve it with Kuro's power. His ability wasn't to see the future, but rather to machete it and change it. However, he couldn't change it at will. The Kyuden's power could split probable futures, and he could choose one. But the fewer possibilities a future had, the further and harder the split became. They planned to use this power to create a future where people would stop believing in the Steel Lady. Since she hadn't killed anyone, they believed they could succeed in this plan. But it turns out that the detective wanted to investigate the case, and when he found her, he wanted to stop her but couldn't do anything against her, and she ended up finishing him off. So the next day everything was chaos as people started saying that it was the Steel Lady because of the way the detective's head was crushed, and with all those rumors, the Steel Lady was stronger and more violent than ever. So they would have to find a way to stop her. But it turns out that the detective wanted to investigate the case, and when he found her, he wanted to stop her but couldn't do anything against her, and she ended up finishing him off. So the next day everything was chaos as people started saying that it was the Steel Lady because of the way the detective's head was crushed, and with all those rumors, the Steel Lady was stronger and more violent than ever. So they would have to find a way to stop her. Iguanaga, after searching for a solution for so long, ended up falling asleep, and Saki ended up alone with Kuro, but it was to find a solution. In addition, Azaki found it strange that Iguanaga was dating her since she was not his type, to which Kuro agreed. Furthermore, Kuro's type of girl was like his cousin Rika, who was in the hospital, and Kuro had brought her here to meet her when they went out, and she was very beautiful, although she was very pale and very thin. In addition, Here, through hospital gossip, she found out that Rika had tried to commit suicide several times. So she assumed that after spending so much time in the hospital and not wanting to live, she had already died, but Kuro told her that she was still alive and couldn't die because she was his cousin, implying that she was also immortal. When Iguanaga woke up, she was upset for leaving them alone since they were exes. So she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, but out of nowhere Saki asked her about Rika and she told her that she didn't know her and that, like Kuro, she had eaten mermaid and Kyuden meat. Furthermore, Rika had lived with her for a while when she was discharged from the hospital. Although Iguanaga confessed to her that when she met Rika, she thought she was not a good match for Kuro, to which he agreed. And as Rika felt bad about it, she said she couldn't be that bad for him, and over time, Iguanaga and Rika started to get along. But a month later, she left Iguanaga's house saying she had found a job and a place to stay, but all of that was a lie. They couldn't communicate with her after that, and when that happened, Juro left a message for Iguanaga not to call him because he was looking for Rika. With Kuro's appearance in the city, Saki deduced that Rika was behind the Steel Lady, and Iguanaga confirmed it, as she was the one who created the page and the figure of the Steel Lady and used her power to make the legend of the Steel Lady grow rapidly. Moments later, a cat arrived to inform them that the Steel Lady had appeared. So the boys went to look for her. Then, Kuro would confront her, while Iguanaga tried to make people stop believing in the ghost. But since Rika wanted them to believe she existed, she would have a duel with Iguanaga to convince the people. To make the story short, Iguanaga commented on the page of the Steel Lady and created several false stories where he said that the Steel Lady did not exist. A person who held a grudge against the detective created the story of the Steel Lady and disguised himself as her so that people would believe in her. Then, after a great elaboration, the criminal led the detective to a place where he ended up killing him, making it look like the Steel Lady had done it. To make the story more believable, he said that the criminal was a female police officer and managed to lure the detective, as he was after his bones. Basically, he gave the description of Saki and how Kuro used his power to choose a future. Iguanaga was convincing people, but Rika did not stand idly by and used her power to get ahead and cured to choose a future where people would not believe in Iguanaga and continue to believe in the Steel Lady. So the Steel Lady became stronger, but Iguanaga and Kuro did not think of giving up. Then Iguanaga started with a crazy theory, but with good arguments, as she said that Nanas was very sad because of the guilt of her father's death, and when the steel beams fell on her and crushed her, she appeared as a ghost to make her understand that she had not killed her father. But over time, as no one believed her, she became violent. She also told them another crazy theory that Nane's father, not getting along with her, committed suicide and blamed Nanes with the book he left behind. When she died and reunited with her father, after hearing the truth, she became evil and returned to Earth to try to make people understand that she had not killed him. While Iguanaga was saying a bunch of nonsense, Juro was facing the Steel Lady and choosing the convenient futures to end her, and of course, Rika was preventing it. Iguanaga, after several crazy theories, came up with the craziest one of all and said that the truth was that Nanas was depressed by the death of her father, but she found a person who looked like her and deceived her into dressing like her and speaking to the press. But when she arrived at the place, Nanas immobilized her and threw the beams on top of her. In addition, she arranged for the girl's identity not to be discovered, so she took on the girl's identity and was the one who created the page and spread the story of the Steel Lady so that they would believe she was dead. But when she arrived at the place, Nanas immobilized her and threw the beams on top of her. In addition, she arranged for the girl's identity not to be discovered, so she took on the girl's identity and was the one who created the page and spread the story of the Steel Lady so that they would believe she was dead. But one night, when she encountered the detective and he recognized her, she ended up knocking him out and killing him. Obviously, all of this was a lie. So, in the end, after a long fight, Juro not only had won the battle, but had also defeated Rika by choosing a future. So, even though she said that everything Iguanaga said was a lie, people wouldn't believe her. The kids had won, Rika congratulated them, but she wouldn't just sit back. When everything was over, the yokais in the area celebrated the defeat of the Steel Lady, although they also accidentally readjusted Saki. Days later, everything returned to normal. Saki returned to her job. She ended up running into Kuro by chance, and their Kuro revealed to her that Rika was in the hospital trying to find a way to become normal again. But since they couldn't do anything, she was determined to create a creature that could make her mortal again, which would have to be a deity. When Kuro returned to the city, she scolded him for talking alone with Saki. But when things calmed down, the anime ended with our protagonists holding hands. And that's the end of the summary of this wonderful anime. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, as it helps and motivates me to keep creating more content for you. See you soon.